So hello and welcome back for our second episode of BSI's Future Learning series. It's a podcast where we talk about the issues impacting organisations and working life and how business and organisational learning can respond to them effectively in new and meaningful ways. I'm your host Simon Dewar and I'm coming from the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation today. In our second episode, we're going to be looking at one of the big issues impacting our working lives, employee, society and customers' expectations, and also driving positive change in the way we govern our businesses, support our people and manage our work, and that's diversity, equity and inclusion. A recent Australian Human Resources report on the state of DEI in Australian workplaces stated that 84% of HR professionals recognise DEI as critical to their organisation's future, but only 50% reported their organisations prioritise DEI in a meaningful way. It's an interesting stat, and I think it speaks to the fact that there is a lot of desire to do this stuff well, but in reality, the changes required to make it real are challenging, and they take longer than people would think, and they require almost, I guess, an unpicking of the way organisations work in order to kind of re-sow a new future. That's kind of the way I've been thinking about it. Now, we recognise what a huge area of practice DEI is, and that we'll only be able to really scratch the surface today. But what we'd like to do is start by looking at what it means for individuals and organisations, and then wrap up today with some of the principles of driving positive change in the way that we do things. I'll also start by saying that DEI is a journey, and at BSI, we're on that journey, but by no means are we perfect. We're not there yet. We're making lots of steps, and we believe it's an ongoing piece of work, one that I'm personally extremely passionate about, and for me has to start with your people. And as a leader yourself, this wave of permission to, I guess, deviate from the old ways of doing things and start embracing new ways of doing things. For me, I guess that alignment is, I guess, what brings organisations into a state of mind where things can be different, and that permission to do that, I think, is really important in organisations. Joining us for this important conversation today, I'd like to introduce our fantastic guests who will bring to the table their experience and knowledge. First of all, my co-host and colleague Carla. Carla Phillip is CEO of BSI's Learning Institute. Carla has over 25 years of experience in skills and education across 3 countries in various executive and director roles. She's also an independent director on the board of AIHS, a member and graduate of AICD, as well as working on the committee for the Australian Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Carla.
Thanks, Simon.
We're also really lucky today to have Nola Turner-Jensen with us. Nola is a Wiradjuri woman and an Aboriginal linguist specialising in restoring traditional place mapping translation in modern Australia. Nola has been researching an Aboriginal morphology of the language of her people's mother country for over 20 years. She is an Aboriginal Diversity and Inclusion Fellow within the Faculty of Science at the University of Melbourne and leads the National Creation Sisters Side project that aims to restore knowledge of our linguistic law system, rules and standards. Nola previously led the Culture Recode project for 7 years, identifying the subconscious difference between First People and colonial heritage Australians that causes the cultural divide in this country and creates much discord and misunderstanding between the two systems. She's also the founder of Crackerjack Education, Australia's leading online Aboriginal site for teachers, which was the first of its kind in the world, and she's also the director of the biocultural Five Bats Company and multiple published author. Welcome, Nola.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Finally, we have the wonderful Annalie Blundell, an esteemed learning professional and educator in the DEI space, who has supported BSI in our own development of our DEI program and training. Annalie was AITD's Learning Professional of the Year. I think it was for 2021. Is that right, Annalie?
Yes.
Brilliant. And obviously speaks very widely on gender. Annalie is also author of the book, The Gender Penalty. Welcome, Annalie. So great for you to be able to join us today.
Thanks so much, Simon. Carla, delighted to be here and spend some time with Nola as well.
Excellent. I'm going to kick off with our first question to each of you, and I think it's a starting position for anybody joining the podcast that maybe just wants to understand a little bit more about, what DEI actually is. I'd like to understand from your experience, I think both Nola and Annalie as educators in this space, when you start explaining what DEI is, where do you begin? Maybe can I start with you, Nola?
Marinara, everybody. Nadu Gamban and Indiga. Nola Turner-Jensen do. So I'm Wiradjuri. I'm coming from Yugambeh country on the Gold Coast. So I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional owners here and my ancestors back home in New South Wales, in Wiradjuri country, and any Aboriginal people or Torres Strait Islander First people that are listening today. So that I've started with because I just honour my people, and now I can get on with your question. Yeah, diversity, inclusion, it's been a lot talked about over the last several years, and certainly there's a lot of confusion. I do a lot of training with organisations in cultural safety. What is cultural safety? And I don't think there's, I would hate to think if I Googled what is diversity, inclusion or cultural safety, how many versions of that would actually come up. There's not a consistency in this country about that. So it's really difficult for everybody that's trying to find the best way and find the best path for their employees and their business. So I appreciate the struggle. And I think, so diversity and inclusion is, I think it's about trying to meet the needs, the systemic or subconscious needs of everybody in the room. And after all, when you're working with anybody, when you're presenting information or you're working alongside someone or you're creating policy regarding employees, in the end, it comes down to how you make them feel. And for me, diversity and inclusion is about making people feel like they matter, is making people feel that their history, their ancestry, their knowledge matters and is included. And that's not easy as a journey. And I think also people need to, for diversity and inclusion to occur effectively, we all need to stay in our diversity lane and bring in experts. So if you're a man, you can't speak for a woman. If you're a colonial heritage Australian or an Australian person, you can't speak for Aboriginal. If you're Aboriginal, you can't speak for other Australians. So these are the lanes that we have, these systemic lanes, if you like. And if everybody stuck to their lanes and was brought in to develop and include the needs and diversity of their own expertise, that would be, I think we'd have much more productive systems.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There was so much in that, and my brain is buzzing with all that I just learnt just from that response. So thank you, Nola.